JLA Earth 2 is a pretty out there comic where the Justice League fought evil versions of themselves from a parallel antimatter Earth, but the resolution wasn't a fistfight, but instead understanding that a truly flipped universe wouldn't just be the heroes are now villains, but the rules of morality which govern the existence of superhero stories would also be flipped. The supervillains would always win, the heroes would always lose, and the world conforms to injustice. Changing it would be like changing water into fire and vice versa. The film, that's partly inspired by this graphic novel, is like, nah. It is about heroes fighting the villains, and as a result, it's got a completely different focus. Instead of being a lesson in recognizing the way reality works in fiction, it's about fighting against nihilism. Despite being called Crisis on Two Earths, it's really about the existentially terrifying idea of the multiverse as a whole. The main antagonist, Owlman, argues that if reality just keeps branching from every decision you make, then every decision is rendered meaningless, because the alternative exists elsewhere.
How can you say that? We're rich, we're conquerors.
And here we're poor.
So you're not special, you're less than nothing in the big picture of just existing. Which is of course something a dude who runs the world would obviously say. But this desire for significance is really just a mask for an overall genuine hatred towards humanity. And the conclusion he's made for making meaning for himself is to blow everyone up. Destroying Earth Prime to rip reality from the roots, saving existence from man's horrible effects.
You're insane.
And also enact the only action that means anything, because there won't be an alternative world branching from it. He'll kill every version of himself and everyone else, which is just nuts.
Man is a cancer, and I've chosen to cut out the disease.
That's also kind of the point. Owlman exists on two levels. He's a symbol of pure nihilism, a character with no history, no future, no wants or motives beyond a total surrender to the meaninglessness of existing in a universe that doesn't care. But also, in contrast, his misanthropy is given direct allusion towards Batman's histories. At the end, he's like, wow, we're kind of similar, and the killer line that Batman gives after his victory is,
We both looked into the abyss, but when it looked back at us, you blinked.
which infers that they probably both experienced the same tragedy, losing their parents to an act of evil from man. But where Owlman refused to care anymore, Batman kept his capacity to love.
If we're really alike, you know this is wrong. You must have been a good man once.
No, not good. Never good. After all, I'm only human.
A subtle detail that appears throughout the film is that Batman appears like he doesn't care. He risks Flash's life during the teleporter test. When everyone agrees to help the other Earth, Batman says no, and stays behind. But then at the end, he saves Flash's life by using Johnny Quick, and he's the one who personally ventures out to save all of reality. As Owlman said,
You should have sent your flying man. With his strength, he might have had a chance, but you don't trust anyone else to do what needs to be done. I feel the same way.
both Owlman and Batman recognizes how they reflect off of one another, from skills to behaviors, but they only diverge when it comes to their position on humanity. Batman cares.
Did we save the world then? We did.
He may have a more conservative opinion about things sometimes, but unlike Owlman, he never blinked. He'll fight just a little bit harder for everyone else, and he still asks for help.
Count again.
Leading to this genius scene where Aquaman gets headbutted and Batman has to tell him that they're stronger than he is.
Careful, Aquaman. They're stronger than you are.
As if he didn't just get headbutted, and somehow Batman personally knows, even though he just met them like 5 minutes ago. Batman isn't a misanthrope. In fact, his experiences and just fun ability to vibe with people leads him to suggest opening up the membership of the Justice League to more people, setting up JLU, before this film was ultimately turned into a standalone, so that leads to nothing now. Believing in people is like the main thesis of the film. It's so deep, I know, right? It's like this answer to all the nihilism and misanthropy. In fact, the appearance of the Justice League and their mission is about quite literally bringing back and inspiring hope. Superman's whole thing is that when everyone has very conservative approaches and beliefs, like attacking the crime syndicate's operations one at a time, or just letting them stay in charge so people don't die or anything, he's like, no, you gotta do something more now.
There's a saying on my world. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
It's easy for someone like you to be brave, but most of us aren't bulletproof.
Sir, I stand up to guys more powerful than I am all the time. You can do the same.
That's simple, huh?
I'm sorry, Mr. President, but we're not about to give up this fight. Not when we finally have a chance to win it.
If Earth 2, the graphic novel, had this idea where the main matter universe must always conform and organize towards the ideals of justice because it's a universe filled with superheroes, and in the antimatter universe it's the direct opposite, Crisis on Two Earths argues that justice is not this metaphysical rule that exists. Justice instead is something asserted by people within a universe that provides nothing dependable, where no outcome is truly favored because the opposite will always exist and have its own place, where heroes win when heroes lose, when the heroes are the villains and vice versa. But one universal constant that does exist is believing in people.
I owe you an apology about this mission. You were right.
We were both right.
And it's from that belief meaning can be asserted. All of a sudden the universe isn't cruel, where existing doesn't feel insignificant or powerless. It's warm, filled with possibilities. And this is where John comes in. Martian Manhunter, out of all characters, is delightfully the heart of the film because he has this whole love story with Slade's daughter from across the universe. It's very random, I know, where her father is grown to be very apathetic. Rose is filled with a raw desire for justice against all the risks. And she falls in love with John because he's so hot, man.
What are you doing?
She tries to kiss him, but then he shows her his way of showing love. The Martian way of melding minds. So across species, across multiverses, across memories of being with family, fighting, tragedies, arrivals, they share similarities and feelings despite belonging to such different places, and they fall in love. But John can't stay after they've saved her world. He must go because he made a promise to his new home. In other words, in a multiverse with so many different places and people, infinite in fact, it only means there's so much more to love. So that was the Crisis on Two Earths video. I was working on the Dark Knight Returns Part 1 video, and then I was like, you know, I want to reread the comic to kind of get my memories when I talk about the film. And then I was like, oh, but I also want to make a Flashpoint video. So then I started working on that, and I was like, oh, but this is taking a lot longer. And then I was just like, you know what, I want to just do a Crisis on Two Earths video, because I really, really loved this film back in the day.
I'm sorry, Harley. The Jester's never coming back.